Alright, so it's another beautiful day and I'm going to be talking to you a bit more about home education. So basically, when I first heard that we were going to be having this lockdown and that families were not allowed to bring their children to school, I was very intrigued to find out exactly how different families would manage the task of homeschooling their children at home. Now, I say homeschooling to mean that they're bringing school home, whereas I think of home education as where you're providing your children with education in a different way, basically. So I remember on the first day, one of my friends, she had a timetable, and the timetable was literally the same, like 9 o'clock till 3 o'clock. It was timetables and scheduled out with maths for an hour and a half, and then maybe English for another hour, and just different things you want to do with her child. And she kind of talks about it and said, we have like a girls group, and she put it on the group and said this is what she wants to do with her child. And I remember feeling a bit like, oh gosh, what do I say to this? Because I felt a bit like, I can't tell her that the day is too long because I didn't want people to feel like I'm imposed on how they do things at home. But I did question and just say, do you think your child will manage, working like this for this time? And she wasn't too sure, but she gave it a try anyway. But hence, by the Friday, she was like, no, I'm throwing away my timetable. I'm not doing this. Like, my child wants to do different things in the home. We're going to do just other things. And it was quite satisfying for me because I kind of realised that parents, when you leave them to their own devices and don't dictate to them what it is that they should do, we as parents, we always come back and realise what it is that we need to do for our child. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe that parents are the first educators of their children, whether they go to school or don't go to school. I mean, the thing is, when you have your child, you give birth to your child, you bring your child back from the hospital, and you're with your child for the first maybe 6 months until you have to go back to work. Some people are with their child longer. Some children never go to nursery and they go straight to school, age 4 years old. But as a parent, you've been home educating your children at that point anyway. Maybe you didn't have workbooks out and getting them to write their name really early, but you were talking to them about their behaviours, talking to them about things that were right and things that were wrong. You were feeding them, you were clothing them, and there was a constant discussion taking place within your home.
Hi,
you were
Auntie
singing
Sophie.
them songs.
I can't see you. I don't know what you're trying to do.
You'd sing them songs or talk about the toy animals in the bath that you have with them, and you're naturally educating your child in a way. Some people would be educating their child when they're younger by possibly speaking to them in their mother tongue. So maybe at home you'll be speaking your home language to them at home, and then you leave it and say, when they get to school, I'll let them learn English. I've had many parents that did that. So the children grow up in a Duolingo home, or they learn the home language first, and then when they go off to school, they learn something new. Okay, so in my last video, I talked to you about the fact that parents, you are responsible for the education of your children. I mean, in fairness, you always had responsibility for your children, whether they went to school or not. But when it comes down to education, there was an accountability factor. So if your child didn't do well, you could probably put that on the school and say, what are you doing to help my child at school? If your child, the school may come back and say, well, you know what, you need to help them with the homework more, you're not doing enough at home to help them. But there was still a level of responsibility over you, even if they did go to school. Whereas with traditional homeschooling, we have taken on that full responsibility by deregistering our children. So they're deregistered from the school. That means that the school has no responsibility for their education. So we established in the last video that during this temporary lockdown, that you're responsible for your children. Schools are obviously open for two categories of children. You've got the vulnerable children and you've got the children of key workers. Now there's a space available for them, but if they're safe, if it's safe for them to be taught at home or kept at home, that's what they should be doing, basically. But like I said before, I don't know every individual case, so that if you're in those two categories, you've got to kind of talk to somebody else about it. But the main audience that I'm looking for right now is people that do not fall into those categories, are for those parents who are teaching their children. We haven't got a date. We're yet to be given a date about when schools will be reopened, but we're basically in the second week of the Easter holidays right now, when this video was recorded. But next week, it looks as though the schools will still be shut, and some people are predicting that schools may not be open until September. So bearing that in mind, you've got to think about what is it that you want to do within your home to make sure that your child has been educated. Maybe you'll decide that you will take a break from the start of education that they're already receiving, or you may continue to work through the worksheets and the packs that the teachers have given you. But we're going to discuss that further in this video. Okay, so by now, you may be starting to understand the enormous responsibility. You may be feeling a bit concerned, or you may be feeling a bit undertrained and unprepared for the task ahead. But don't worry, because many parents in the UK right now will be feeling the same way that you felt, and also many home educating parents felt like this at one stage as well. Like many of us that took our children out of school did this under accidental circumstances, where the term accidental homeschooling comes from. So it may have been a situation where your child may have been bullied at school, or not getting on really well at school, or you might have had to move house or something like that, and you felt like you had to homeschool school your children, and then you realise once you were in it that it wasn't as bad as you thought. And many of you may be in that stage right now. Many of you might be like, no, forget it, I can't wait, send them back, I can't wait to send them back to school. But many of you might be like, you know what, this is not so bad, and you're embracing the time with your children right now. All right, so before I continue with going on to the benefits of home educating your children, let's talk about the negatives, because I've been reading a lot of posts online. There's been quite a lot of funny memes, things that I've been doing, things that even I do at home with my children, where we don't follow the timetable in the way that people had tried to do, like I explained in the first part of the video. But let's talk about some of the negatives about how people are finding the strain right now of home educating their children. I've got some notes here, so if I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes of what I've read. Okay, so here's some things that people have said. I cannot physically sit and do work with them all, so I have to set tasks for each of them. Having them all off and having different needs when you are stuck in the house is difficult. Yeah, and I understand that. I definitely understand it can be difficult. It's difficult for me. I remember when my oldest boy, the age gap is 2 years apart, but in terms of school years, my two sons, they're basically 3 school years apart. So when they were younger, you can see how wider the gap would have been. Having one child in year 1, having another in year 2, and another in year 5 can be quite different. But yet they weren't really babies, so it wouldn't be as hard as maybe if I had like a baby as well. But at the same time, it is a real issue, and it can be a real concern of trying to navigate through the different age ranges. And I will come to that. Bear with me. I will talk about those. I'll probably come to that in my other video when I give you some actual real tips of what you can do to just start the process with your children. But another one said, it's not like normal school holidays. As you can't take them to the park, you can only go for your daily walk. Exactly, same for me. It's not the normal holidays. So even for my daughter and my son, they can't go to any of their clubs. They can't go to Stitch Club, can't go to basketball, can't go to music classes, can't see their friends. It's the same thing, because it's not a natural environment for any of us, even if your children go to school or if you're home educated anyway. So as parents, we're on the same page, basically. Teaching children at home is difficult, particularly when children want help having things explained. Teaching methods have changed, and the way we did it was different. I'm only 28, and there are lots of parents who are older than me who are finding some of the teaching methods are completely different. Again, that's another issue that you would find at home. But you only can do what you can. Like you're not a trained teacher, you're not a trained teaching assistant, so you wouldn't be able to teach in the same way that a teacher has learned how to teach her children. All you can do is the best that you can do, and that's all you're being asked to do. You shouldn't, if your school is asking you to be a teacher of maths, English and science, something's wrong, okay? Because you can only give your children, you can only give them what you can give them, basically. So if you're not good at maths, you might have to reach online or find different tools to help you to teach your child math. If you're good at English, maybe you'll teach them more English. But even if you can't do any of those things, don't worry about it. Just try and teach them something different. Maybe teach them something that you know how to do. Maybe you're really good at hair, like blow drying hair. No, that's a bad idea. That's a health and safety bad idea. Baking. You can do cooking and baking with your child. But there's other things that you should be doing in your home anyway, like keeping your house clean. Basically keeping your house clean and tidy. The rabbit's distracting me. Hello. What are you doing? Yeah, he does that. But just make sure he doesn't. Did you need my help or something?
Me.
Okay, hold on. See, if this is my work, I get distracted just as much as anybody else. I just had to help my daughter get the rabbit from the other side. Yeah, so there's like a few examples of things that are tricky, but again, there's always ways around it. Tip number 1. Don't look at social media as the norm of how people home educate their children at home, because every family and every household is completely different, and people always show the best bits about their lives online. So don't look at somebody else and think, okay, I'm not doing as well as them because their pictures that they're putting up look perfect. It's not that way for everybody, so don't worry about that. Number 2, this lockdown is affecting everybody, not just you, not just me, not just them. It's affecting everyone. So don't feel like if you need to take a time out or you're feeling a little bit stressed out that you're the only one in that situation, because many people are feeling exactly the same way that you're speaking. Disclaimer, I speak for us. I'm very sorry. If I start slowing down, I will stutter. This is just the way I've been made, and this is just how I speak. So if I'm speaking too fast, you have to slow it down. On the YouTube button, I think they have a speed dial where you can slow the speed down. So if I'm going too fast for you, then just do that for now. Okay. Number 3, if you're struggling to juggle work, maybe talk to your boss or talk to the person that you're employed by about different ways that you can work, if it's possible. If it's a way that you can maybe be with your children a lot more during the day and then finish off your work a little bit later on in the evening, maybe do that. If there's other ways around it that you can work around this, and hopefully they'll be able to help you, because you need to have a level of flexibility. And hopefully, I mean, not all situations will work like that, but if you're able to, it's worth a try. It's worth to figure out a way that you can work around it. Or you might have to find ways of just finding little slots in the day where you can just do where your children most need you, and taking those slots and making the most out of it. Parents with language barriers. Again, you're going to have to think of creative ways of working with your children. Maybe you're going to use Google Translate, or just do things that you can do in your home language. So if there's something that you're good at within your home language, maybe that's what you can do with your children. If your children could learn something from your culture that they didn't learn about before, now's your time to do that. Like Black History Month, for example. We have Black History Month only in the month of October. Yet Black history is part of everything within a Black community. So you can talk about Black history now and focus on it now in the month of April rather than leaving it until October. And the same for other cultures out there. There may be things that you can do with your children now in your home language that you couldn't do at other times, basically. Throw away the old routine and create a new routine with your children. There was an old routine you had before where you could probably wake up in the morning, have your morning routine, get your children in the car or public transport or walk to school with their scooters, have them at school for 6 hours while you came back home and did different things at home like tidying up or different things, or went to work, whatever it was that you were doing. And then you might have had a system in place, but after the children came home from school. That can't happen anymore, unfortunately, and obviously you can maybe grieve that for a point in time, but you need to get used to the fact that those things not happen anymore. Not having a garden. Again, think of creative ways that you can use the lighting in your home to kind of bring that lighting in. Maybe open your windows, make sure that you turn off the TV so you can hear like the sensory sounds of the birds outside or different things outside if you're fortunate enough to do that. Open your front door. If there's a way to open your front door and have the light come in, then do that. Maybe make the most of different sensory things for the children. So children who can't go outside maybe need to like get them to wash up a little bit more so they can feel the water on their skin. So it's different temperatures and different feeling and different textures to try and make it work. Maybe do like an assault course around your house if you could, like by putting masking tape all over the floor and getting children to hop around the house, or do like little roly-polies if they can. I don't know, because again, I don't know what your house is like. But you've got to find the most creative ways of doing things whilst your children are at home basically. Resources. Maybe the homework that you've been given, you don't have enough of the resources. You might not have the pens that you need, you might not have the scissors that you need, or the paper even, or even a printer. And again, if you don't have those things, you've got to talk to your school about what they're giving you, and maybe it's your time to let go of the worksheets, let go of that method of work that's not working for your family. If it's causing you to feel like you're stressing yourself out and your children are getting stressed out, you need to throw it away and think of another way to home educate your children. And I will be discussing that in another video, so don't worry too much about it. Yeah, just don't do them. Schools need to be careful actually with providing parents with all these worksheets and different things, because if it didn't work with your child while they were in school, then it might not work with your children now. If you like that method, then continue to use that method. But if it's not working for you, I'm saying to you, you have responsibility for your children's education, so throw them out, do something completely different. Yeah, and then now for the positives. I think throwing away the worksheets is quite a good thing if it doesn't work for your family, but there are so much benefits and things that you can do in your home that I will be discussing in another video. But very briefly, things like housework is a really important thing. Gardening, animal care, if you have a pet, helping your children to look after the pet, looking after each other. Think about compassion. Is your children compassionate? Are they kind? Are they caring? Are they rude? Do they need to be disciplined in a better way where you're really focusing on that behaviour, that character trait, and working on ways of dealing with it? Music, if you've got a musical flair, then maybe you can teach them an instrument or listen to different type of instruments. Maybe recycling, show them how to recycle things within your house. Work on shopping lists of things that you need in your house, things that you don't have in your house. And there's so many things that you can do with your children. So that's the end of that video. I really have so much more to say, as you probably can already tell. But in my other video, I'll be starting from the ground up, from the foundational point, and helping you to build your hierarchy of things that your pyramid of things that you can do to make your lockdown schooling a lot more smoother. I hope that helped. I know that it feels like I didn't get to say as much as I wanted to, but hopefully it helped you and your family. Okay, join me again tomorrow. Bye.
Hey, don't clean when I'm trying to get you. Come on. Don't lick your lip either. Hey, Apple. Don't go in my plants. No, I knew you were going to do that.
Apollo? Hello? Is that a